Good evening, everybody. I'm going to start this timer and get the show started. Hang on. What's going on here? I don't know why that just went to a whole different video. We're back on track. Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? It's one heck of a weekend. Good evening, David.
Howdy, howdy. Ready to talk that Tuesday night spectacular. Welcome to the Fourth and Goal Sports Podcast, everybody. How we doing, Chris? Nice to see you tonight.
We're doing good. Lions back on track, 9-3, baby. It's Victory Tuesday.
Boy, they didn't make it look easy, though, did they?
No, they did not. I was a little frustrated with Ben Johnson. I felt like some of the play calls he was calling on offense just wasn't clicking. To me, that's what kind of killed us for a minute there. Don't get me wrong, our defense needs to step up. But to go 3 and out back to back to back to back to back, you're not giving your defense any chance. We all knew the Saints weren't just going to lay down and take it either. They're fighting for their playoff hopes, their division, and we let them get right back in the game. The one thing I was happy about it is when we needed to score, we did. And when we needed the first down to kill the clock, we did. And I want to give a shout out to Bruce Irvin. The dude played 6 snaps Sunday, got a sack, technically got a second sack, but because the flag, you can't count it. But he got the QB knockout. And granted, I don't want any player to get hurt. But if Carr stays in that game, there's a chance we don't win that game. So that turned out to be the outcome that helped us seal the deal. And in his first game all year, to play 6 snaps and to have that kind of impact on the game, to me, that is huge. I'm
I thought
excited.
It was 11, but that's okay. He still had a big impact in his first game, and I think he's a nice addition to your team that needs some help defensively, as it appears that the longer the season goes on, Detroit's defense is kind of weakened up compared to what it was earlier in the season.
Yes, we just need to get back to fix the little things and get back to where we're playing. I still think we'll be all right. Every team goes through adversity throughout the season. Speaking of that, we made some signings because McNeil is going to be on IR and miss probably the 4 games. But we signed today DL Tyson Alalua from Pittsburgh. He played with Pittsburgh and Jags for a little bit. A veteran guy to come in and play on D-line. So I'm excited to see what he brings. Kind of another player like Irvin that wanted to play, but just kind of sat around, wanted to play with a contender. So I think it's good veteran leadership. Good move to play with the young guys. We also signed a cornerback, Kendall Vindor, to the active roster from our practice squad. So we'll definitely see what plays out this Sunday in Chicago.
Well, and I don't expect that to be an easy matchup for you. You guys struggled with them, in the last matchup that you guys played them, and that was at home. This time it's going to be on the road.
Yeah.
I know that you'll probably be able to expect what they will have coming this time around, so maybe it won't be too awful bad.
Well, see, my opinion on that.
We're getting to the time of the season where injuries are affecting teams. We're closing in on the playoff picture. And so, you can kind of see which teams are going to get there, which teams are not going to get there. The coaches that the hot seat, they know they're on their way out. They're just trying to get through the end of the year and hope that they don't get fired before the season comes to a close. And then we've got the quarterback carousel is going to be, in full swing here as another quarterback goes down, here on Monday night, Trevor Lawrence with a high ankle sprain. The way that he was carted off the field, in comparison to when Patrick Mahomes was hurt with a high ankle sprain last year, I just get the feeling that he's going to miss a couple of games for sure. It's going to be one of those situations where, he would love to play, but he's probably not going to be able to. They're going to have to go to C.J. Beathard. The Browns have already gone to Joe Flacco. The Jets are getting ready to go on to their, 4th quarterback of the year. They signed Brett Rippon off of the practice squad from the Seattle Seahawks because they don't want to go back to Zach Wilson, and he doesn't want to play anyway because he gets blamed for them losing every time he plays. They have not handled the situation well with Zach Wilson in New York. He is one of these guys who they drafted high, they throw him to the fire. He has no offensive line to protect him. He's on his, I believe, 3rd offensive coordinator in 3 years, and so they just haven't done anything to help the guy out. I know he's got some weapons around him, but they benched him, early on. Then, they come back and they bring him back like, okay, we're going to give you another shot. Then they bench him again. They essentially benched him for Aaron Rodgers to bring him in to replace him. And then 4 plays into the season, Rodgers goes down. Wilson comes in. And, they expect him to suddenly perform miracles, because they built a team to be around Aaron Rodgers, not Zach Wilson. And I don't think they were ready for Aaron Rodgers to be the quarterback either. They talked about it in Hard Knocks. The offensive line was porous. They wanted to draft another left tackle. New England moved up with Pittsburgh and took the guy they wanted. They didn't bolster the offensive line in the offseason like they wanted to. Fourth play in, Rodgers gets hurt. And the whole Rodgers coming back this year was a complete charade. He is, desperate for attention because that's who Aaron Rodgers is. And, but I don't blame Zach Wilson for not wanting to play because, they haven't done him any favors at all since he's been there.
You don't think that Aaron Rodgers comes back at all?
No, he ain't playing.
I mean, at this point, I think
they made an announcement this week that said that he's not going to come back if they're not playoff eligible, and they're not playoff eligible. So,
we call it. What was I going to say? Since you bring the quarterback, I had this conversation, so I wanted to bring it up today. So somebody posted in the Renegades, and they showed a picture of Deshaun Watson in his sling up in the press box or the suite. And then they showed last night, it showed Joe Burrow and his arm sling, and he's on the bench helping his backup win the game. So the debate, and mind you, when I say this, I'm not coming at you by any means. It's just some funny of these KC fans comments, and his comment was, both of these guys don't matter because they're not in the category. They got their dreams crushed by pay. Now, mind you, Pat Mahomes did beat Joe Burrow, has stopped Deshaun Watson from winning a Super Bowl back when he was with the Texans. But what blew my mind is just because Pat is obviously the number one QB since Brady's out of the league, Joe Burrow's still in the same category as Patrick Mahomes. But Patrick Mahomes is just on top of that category because he's already proven with 2 Super Bowl wins and the things he's accomplished in his career already. Am I right? Am I wrong? But
I know what you're getting at, and we have to remember that everybody that comes on Facebook wants to say something. They want to start shit. They want to stir it up. NFL Renegades was built on trash talk central, stirring it up and messing with each other and fuck your team and, all this other stuff. And so any, comments that somebody makes to fake prop up their own team, their own quarterback, their own whatever, you have to take with a grain of salt.
For sure.
When you're talking about social media.
For sure.
We can discuss what people have said, and we have in the past. I've been very vocal about the way people act like, they're world beaters when they haven't done anything, or, the sky is falling because a team lost this week, but you have to come to the realization, that the season is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And every week, the matchups completely change. It doesn't matter that, Patrick Mahomes beat Deshaun Watson at one point or that he beat Joe Burrow at one point. Those guys aren't playing anymore. Yeah. They're out. There's no reason to bring them up other than to just, hey, look what these guys are doing while their backups are in the game. Well, one guy's helping his team out and the other guy's doing nothing.
Exactly.
And you can bash him all you want all day long because of the massages and the guaranteed contracts, and he's black and whatever, they can come up with whatever they want, to downtrodden Deshaun Watson and be like, oh, look at Joe Burrow, how special he is.
But this is what took me out of it because it wasn't necessarily talking about that dude's comment. I'm just saying how it started. That was the comment that got it
Right.
going. I said my piece. And I basically just said, both of these guys at some point were in the same category as Patrick Mahomes. Now, what started was Nathan Reno, that's been on
Well,
been on the
our
show.
first round draft pick quarterbacks.
You
I mean,
know,
that's the only thing they have in common.
well, and this is what brought it up because Nathan Reno, that I've had on the show, the interview, he brought it up and about the category where they're at in their career. Now, at one time, I did have Deshaun Watson in the top 5, top 10 elite quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl. But here's my take. My take right now is I personally think Deshaun Watson's not in that category anymore. Not saying he's trash. I just think he's moved lower in the quarterback category for the simple fact is we haven't seen Deshaun Watson play Deshaun Watson football since he was with the Texans.
We did see glimpses of it this year, but he hasn't been on the field enough to justify the contract or to say, hey, this guy is right back where we thought he was going to be. I thought he played unbelievable against Baltimore when they beat Baltimore, you know, and everybody was like, man, here comes Cleveland, and then immediately the next day, shoulder surgery, I got to be done for the year, even though he finished the game.
And that's what I'm bringing up is because back when Deshaun Watson played with the Texans, all the little injuries he had before the big shoulder one, the banged up the game in the beginning of the season where he missed games, those type little bang ups, that dude played. That dude won games in Texans with broken ribs. Had to drive on a bus all the way to the one away game because it was unsafe for him to fly.
Right,
and he still balled out.
Something. Right, I remember that.
Now, since he's got this guaranteed money, any little bump he's had, I can't play. Shoulder surgery. And granted, he probably didn't need shoulder surgery. But what if he could have played the rest of the year and had shoulder surgery at the end of the year?
Which is entirely possible.
You know what I'm saying? But because he got that guaranteed money, it ain't worth it for him to do it.
And that's why they don't hand out those guaranteed contracts.
So to me, it's like you can't even put him in that category.
Ron wants to bring up some of the other injuries that happened this week. Tank Dell for Houston, it's a damn shame because here's a rookie player, who is really making his mark on a team that is up and coming with the help of the others on that team. I never heard of Nico Collins, I love C.J. Stroud. I thought he was going to be the number one pick in the draft. I'm glad he didn't go to Carolina. I'm really glad he went to Houston. Things are working out really good for him. But, Tank Dell got hurt. We almost, Pacheco almost got hurt with an abdominal injury against the Packers. He got all bit backwards, and I didn't think he'd be back in the game 2 plays later. Here we go.
Yeah.
But, we talked about, Trevor Lawrence, and there are other players, that have been injured. This is the time of the season where the injuries are going to start creeping up because people are getting worn out. As the season goes on, you're going to get worn out. You can't afford some of these guys to get hurt. If they get hurt, then, your playoff chances are probably going out the window. And so, but I liked what we saw last night out of Jake Browning. I think Cincinnati could still get some W's, but they're not the same team without, Joe Burrow. And their schedule coming up is killer. I did not think that Jacksonville brought their A game last night when it came to their defense, allowing them, they didn't double cover Jamar Chase, and he was throwing to Jamar Chase every damn time. I don't know what they were doing. They never had man-to-man coverage. Everything was zone. They couldn't get any pass rush on the quarterback. They did not blitz enough, in my opinion, in an attempt to get to the quarterback and make some stops. and it just felt like Cincinnati was going right up and down the field on them, in that game. Jacksonville had their opportunities to put it away and couldn't capitalize. And then Lawrence went down, and even though Beathard led them on a field goal drive at the end to get it to overtime, I knew it was over for Jacksonville.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of disappointed that I did not really watch that game too much.
It was a great game, man.
Because I turned it on.
It would have been a showcase game if Burrow had been there, and they were counting on it to be that, and it turned out to be the kind of game that we would have thought it was going to be between those two quarterbacks if he'd have been there, but with the backup being the starter.
Yeah. Honestly, what made me not watch it was I looked at it and I was like, okay, I just got a PS5 the other day, so I've been playing Madden 24 like crazy. So I was playing that, turned it off, and I was like, wait a minute, Jags should easily win this game. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. So I'm going to be a man that meant that I just kind of like, all right, I'm going to play my game, then and then by the time my game I was done playing, I looked and I was like, holy shit, Jacksonville won this game. Or Cincinnati won. Because I thought Jacksonville would win it because Joe's gone. I didn't have high hopes for Cincinnati. And then after I watched some of the highlights and everything that happened last night, I was like, man, I really missed a good game.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to review all of week number 13, but every time I try to load it up to share, the screen dies on me.
Oh, hey.
Come on.
I give you the option. Okay.
Let me try loading a different one. Let me try doing it a different way.
Ron said the scramble is on for veterans with these teams going to the playoffs and what I call fourth frenzy of free agency.
Yeah.
There has been some moves. I'm hoping the Lions sign some cornerback, some safety help. I seen Amos from the Jets was released. I wouldn't mind signing him for depth.
All right. Well, I guess we'll try it this way because at least I can get it to load up. And we've got the Thursday night game. I was really surprised that Seattle was able to put 35 points up on, put 35 points up on Dallas in this game.
Why is it not showing?
Because it's going crazy and I'm about to lose my screen probably.
Here.
Well, I'm here.
There we go.
There we go. No, it's going to die again. It just doesn't know what to do with itself.
Sorry for the technical difficulties here.
Yeah, I may have to reboot the computer so we can make things work. We've been through this before.
I'll hold the fort down.
I mean, it's like the screen's on, the screen's off, the screen's on, the screen's off. All right, I'll be right back.
All right, guys, give David a second. Let him reboot his stuff. Yeah, John, I agree with you. There is some flaws in Dallas. There's definitely some of that, for sure. Seattle played away. Last week I predicted Seattle to win, and Dave looked at me funny when we were discussing matchups for Week 14. So it was really funny because I picked Dallas to lose on Thursday night last week in the matchups, and David looked at me like I was a little funny about it. I just had that hunch that Seattle was going to find a way to expose Cowboys. If you go back to Green Bay, Pete Carroll matchups in the playoffs when Mike McCarthy was with Green Bay, what you call it, Pete Carroll had a pretty good record on Mike McCarthy in the playoffs. They won a lot of those games. So I just felt like you might see Pete Carroll get Mike McCarthy again, and we were close. Couple less mistakes, and Seattle wins that game if they don't make a couple mistakes. That last 3 and out towards the end of the game where they had to punt and get the ball back, that killed them. If they were able to move that ball, do something with it then, they would have had a legitimate shot. But I knew kind of if they didn't do nothing that drive, even if they got the ball back, it wasn't going to be good. And Dallas held on to win. Dallas is still a good team. I ain't taking nothing away. But Dallas has had a pretty easy schedule. And they've got fortunate where they've got some wins. Now, this year, we'll definitely see in the playoff when it comes to playoff time how good Dallas truly is. To me, Dallas has an issue with choking in the playoffs, which brings us up. So I'm glad you actually brought this up because I was reading an article earlier, posted, and rumors has it. I don't know how true, 100% true it is, but I read an article today that said if Mike McCarthy don't make a strong push in the playoffs this year, that he possibly could be fired and replaced with Dan Quinn as the head coach of the team. I don't know how true that is, but I'm just saying I did read an article today. Speaking of it, yeah, they got one more game against Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken, right? Dallas.
Yeah, they play Philadelphia this week.
Oh,
and so the thing that gets me is that by San Francisco winning the game against Philadelphia, this opens the door for the Cowboys. The Cowboys are in a must-win situation this week against the Philadelphia Eagles. They're playing in Dallas. They got them right where they want them. They should have beat them in Philadelphia a few weeks ago. And so, Philadelphia, I think, has kind of been, I don't want to say exposed, but I mean, they have been on the verge of a loss for a while now. Kansas City almost got them. Buffalo almost got them. They're playing against what we all thought before the season began as, this is the meat of the schedule, if you will. And so you got Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, and they still got, a couple more, heavy hitters on the way with Dallas. And, and so I just think that, and I think they got the Rams coming to Philadelphia also, and the Rams are starting, to get their, starting to spread their wings a little bit. But let's see if I can make make this whole thing here work. Okay. Now, if it'll just share, we'll be good shape. All right. Be nice to me. Okay. So, just talking about Dallas, Dallas beats Philadelphia. Okay. They'll be one game closer to to being right there with them. But Dallas has to continue to win, and they need Philadelphia to take one more loss.
yeah.
And then that will propel Dallas into the number one seed in the NFC, depending on what San Francisco does. Okay. San Francisco's got some pretty heavy hitters on their schedule. There's a lot of big games over the next few weeks. And Dave, the prognosticator, is going to show you what I think is going to happen here after we review week number 13. Indianapolis Colts struggled with the Tennessee Titans 31-28. I really thought that Indianapolis' defense was better than this. But Will Levis is continuing to show he's going to be the quarterback of the future for the Tennessee Titans.
He's looking nice.
I don't know how much longer Derrick Henry's going to be there, but, if they just get him a little bit more better offensive line and they continue to bolster the defense, maybe get him a couple more wide receivers there, Tennessee looks like a team that could be on its way back up come next year.
Oh, for sure.
As far as Indianapolis is in the thick of the playoff hunt right now, but they've got themselves some pretty big matchups coming up as well. And so I just think that, Gardner Minshew is doing the job that he was brought in to do. I thought he was going to start the season, as the starter, and then they would work Anthony Carter in because Carter was so
Richardson.
or Anthony Richardson in because he was so raw, but they're like, no, we're seeing enough, throw him out there, and it didn't work out for him, injuries and just not really prepared,
Yeah. I think
the Jets were the Jets against the Falcons, Chris.
It's a shame because I paid attention to that game. I already told you what I was battling on Sunday, so between trying to deal with that and watch games, I did tune into this game a little bit, and I felt like the Jets could have held on and possibly won this game, but they can't get nothing with that damn offense. It don't matter who the quarterback is at this point. And like we discussed earlier, they just put the blame on Zach Wilson, but guess what?
If Zach Wilson would have played this game, they'd have won. If Zach Wilson would have played this game, they would have won.
I can see it.
They got a guy in there with zero experience. Yes, he knows the system because he was in Green Bay, where Nathaniel Hackett came from, and he's buddies with Aaron Rodgers. But they cut him today. He started last week. They cut him today to make room for the next quarterback they're going to bring.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they bring his ass back in the offseason just because Aaron Rodgers says you better.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we talked about Detroit against New Orleans. You guys got off to a huge start, man, 21-0. But then here comes New Orleans. At times in this game, the New Orleans Saints looked like the team we thought they would be in the offseason.
Yeah,
and
they definitely showed flashes.
They weren't able to make the plays at the end. Detroit was just able to do just enough to keep the win.
It's just crazy. I mean, our offense struggled, and it really hurt our defense, and our defense made some bad plays. But I mean, when you have that many snaps on defense consecutively, because your offense keeps going 3 and out, you're only human. You can only do so much. But thankfully, we got the 9-3. And I expect a better game out of our offense next week.
Well, the Houston Texans proved that I don't think they're a fluke. The previous week it went down to the wire against Jacksonville, the top two teams in the AFC South. Well, Denver was the hottest team in the league. They'd won 5 straight. They'd beaten some pretty good teams, and they came to town, and it looked like Houston had control there for a long time. Denver started to come on the comeback trail, and it was their defense in Houston that put a stop to the Denver Broncos. We talked about Tank Dell getting hurt in this game, and it's unfortunate. But the one thing that I noticed, because I was able to watch this entire game, was Houston has found their running game. Okay? They are featuring Devin Singletary, and they are bringing in the second-year player, Dameon Pierce, who's still, in my opinion, recovering from an injury from the previous year. But he picks up the slack, and the two of them, they open up that play action pass, and CJ Stroud just chucks it down the field.
Yeah. He's
Big
looked really
plays
nice.
to Nico Collins.
Michigan boy right there.
I was impressed with Houston. And,
yes.
I
want to give a shout out to Nico Collins.
Yeah, good player.
I seen him play at Michigan for his college career, and he made some big plays. And out of a lot of the offense, he's the biggest one of this year, making an impact on offense. Of course, you got Geary in Green Bay playing crazy defense. A lot of defense players from Michigan is starting to make noise. You haven't heard too much of the wideouts or our offensive players making noise. And so I'm really happy for Collins and happy for Singletary, because when he was in Buffalo, I always wondered why he wasn't that good. Like you've seen flashes, but he wasn't consistent there. Now in a whole new team, new scheme, new place, new everything, and the dude's actually balling out right now, playing good football, and it's good to see that.
I was stunned at the 6-0 score by the Chargers and the Patriots. I wasn't surprised that the Patriots, didn't score anything, because it feels like to me at this point they're quietly tanking.
Yes.
And with only 2 victories this season, they're probably going to end up with the 2nd overall pick. They'll be in prime position to pick a quarterback of their choice. And as far as the Chargers go, what was so surprising is that New England didn't score any points, because the Chargers defense has been awful.
Yeah.
And of course, I know it was raining, and, it was cold and windy and raining in New England, but only 6 points for the Chargers. And then New England broke some kind of a record. They are the first team since 1932 to allow 10 points or less in 3 straight games and lose all 3 of them.
That's one shitty record to have.
Yeah.
And
then, a game that I didn't think this was possible, that the Cardinals would go into Pittsburgh and win the game 24-10. Trubisky got hurt in this one, hurt his ankle. A lot of ankle injuries this week.
You mean Pickett?
Who did I say? Trubisky? Yeah, I meant Pickett. Trubisky had to come in for Pickett. And the offense, did not look good. The defense was not able to hold up against Kyler Murray and his ability to move around the pocket, buy time, and let his guys get open down the field. Just a real disappointing game here for Pittsburgh when it comes to their, going forward, looking to maybe make the playoffs. But, Pittsburgh is still in one of those positions where Mike Tomlin has still never had a losing record in all the years he's been head coach at Pittsburgh. They may not make the playoffs, but it looks like that they're going to, do just enough to not have a losing record there.
I don't see it happening, because I don't think you can fire a coach that's never had a losing record. You just can't do it. But they definitely need some offensive help this offseason, regardless. Somebody better at playing offensive calls as well in Pittsburgh. Because as soon as they can get that fixed, that team's going to be a hell of a team, I think.
Tyreek Hill. Big yardage. He's going to break the season record, barring injury. He will break the single season record for receiving yards in a season. He's going to be the first guy to go over 2,000 yards receiving in a season, and he's going to shatter it, because they've still got 5 games to go. He only needs like 520 yards to do it. He's averaging over 100 yards per game. It's not going to be a problem. with him, getting to over 2,000 yards. But I will say this, Miami's got some pretty tough competition over the next several weeks. They still have to play Baltimore. They still have to play Dallas. I think that those defenses could slow him down, but Miami is the top team in the AFC East right now, and they've got the current number one spot for the number one seed in the AFC. Could be very interesting going here. For Miami, they could have home field advantage in the AFC.
And I'm going to say this, and I won't go out. I'm not 100% convinced because Miami has shown that they can lose games. Not much, but they have lost a couple.
They haven't beat anybody with a winning record. Everybody that they look at what they slaughter, when they played against Denver, okay, when they played against Denver, Denver was one of the worst teams in the league when they beat them. Okay? When they played Buffalo, who was still good at the time, Buffalo killed them. Philadelphia killed them. Kansas City beat them in Germany, But they play these, they play the Jets twice. They're going to win those. New England, they played against, here Washington here, the Giants earlier in the season, Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're not playing against teams that are, as good as setting them up for success going forward. But they're beating up on the sisters of the poor.
I agree 100%. But this is what I wanted to say. I don't think they're the best team in the AFC, but I will say I think they're the most dangerous dark horse heading into the playoffs. And what I mean by that is the next 5 games where a lot of teams in the playoffs and both conferences mean something. Right now, everybody's fighting for the best position every win. Unfortunately, players will get hurt on these teams. So when it comes to playoffs time, and these defenses that maybe beat them prior in the regular season is not as healthy as they were back then, and you let Pike Hill and that damn offense get loose, that's where they could be very scary when it comes to playoff time. Mind you, I'm not 100% sold. I'm not predicting them go all the way. I'm just saying, if I'm on the AFC side right now, I wouldn't really prefer to play Miami at all. I would hope they choke before my team met them, just for that simple fact that if that offense explodes on you, it's hard to stop, especially when you got Hill running like fucking a man out there, and then you got Waddle that's not that much slower than Hill, And then you got that rookie running.
They've been using Mostert, and they just got Achane back.
Yeah.
So now they got the two-headed running game again. Ron says that Miami versus Dallas is very interesting because he considers both teams that show out for easy teams and struggle versus good teams. So you're right. That'll be a real interesting one. It's in Miami. So, Dallas is the team that can everybody up at home and doesn't do that well on the road. Miami has shown that they can rough people up on the road too.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing at home now. Moving on to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, this is an easy win, even though the score doesn't show that. 21-18. Tampa's kind of muddling along. They have an opportunity. If they continue to win, they could pick up that NFC South division. But with the schedule that they've got coming up, it doesn't look good for them. Carolina's in prime position to give the number one selection to the Chicago Bears. And so what a mistake it was to, trade all these assets away, in my opinion. The tail will be, the tail of the tape will be when it's all said and done. Is Bryce Young worth what they paid? DJ Moore, 2 first-round draft picks, plus more picks. It sure looks like Chicago's making out like a bandit here, Chris.
Yeah. Because Chicago should be a good team depending on what the front office does next year. Because they have no excuse with their draft picks and their capital.
We got the game of the day on Sunday, San Francisco 49ers at the Philadelphia Eagles in a rematch of the NFC Championship game last year. And the lead up to this game was all the talk by the 49ers saying if we'd have had Brock Purdy, we'd have won the NFC Championship game. Well, there's no way to prove that, but they blew out the Eagles in Philadelphia after Philadelphia started out with a 6-0 lead, and their defense was holding the 49ers to negative yardage after the first quarter. Then the 49ers exploded, and, because they beat the Eagles, it opens up that spot like we talked about for Dallas to get a hold of Philly this week. And San Francisco could end up with the number 1 overall seed if they win out. So, there was talk for a while that Jalen Hurts was going to be MVP of the league. But now that San Francisco has, knocked down Philadelphia here a little bit, now they're starting to talk about Dak Prescott, a little bit more about Lamar Jackson, and now Tyreek Hill has entered the conversation. And when it comes to MVPs of the league. Yeah. And so Cleveland Browns started Joe Flacco, and we've seen some flashes, but I think that there was some rust. I think it was a little bit of unfamiliarity with the system, kind of rushing him in there after he's only been with the team for a week and a half. And the Rams, like I said, are starting to spread their wings. The defense is starting to play better. The offense has been decent for most of the year, but they really started to make some moves. Kieran Williams, the running back, is the real deal for the Rams, and that really opens up play-action passing. And now they have 3 wide receivers that they can get the ball to in Cooper Kupp, Puka Kanua, and Tutu Atwell is a surprising guy as well, another rookie for the Rams. And so, they can go 3 deep. They can run the ball. Aaron Donald is still Aaron Donald up front. And so I think the Rams could be dangerous going forward.
Oh, for sure. Ron got something to say with the Eagles, and I had something to say too. I'm sorry. The Eagles failed miserably and was surprising to me. I thought it would have been a close game. I thought so too. And going back to all that trash talk the 49ers did, I know there's no guarantee because we didn't see Brock Purdy finish that playoff game. But after Sunday, I mean, that's hard. That's hard to say that they're lying at this point with how bad they beat them. I mean, that wasn't just beat them; like they kicked their ass, beat them.
Philadelphia has been riding high all year long, and I have concern for them after taking the kind of beating it took, that it may take some of the steam out of their sails. They have been riding a real fine line for several weeks, like we talked about. Buffalo, Kansas City, now they're going to go down to Dallas. I won't be surprised at all if Dallas puts it on them.
I'm actually curious. I'm going to definitely be paying attention to that Dallas game. That's for sure. Because that's the game of the week, if I'm not mistaken. So that'd be a later game than the Lions. So I'll definitely be
I believe it's Sunday Night Football.
That's even better.
Yeah. Kansas City Chiefs go up to Lambeau Field.
Guys, let me down, damn it.
Green Bay, hey, buddy, you better look out in that NFC North. Here comes the Packers.
I got to give it to them.
Played really well against a Kansas City defense that has been, touted as one of the best in the league this year. Had an injury in that game. Couple of injuries to talk about. Brian Cook, the safety, his leg got twisted backwards. Unbelievably not broken.
Wow.
I think it's a dislocation, probably some torn ligaments. I wouldn't expect him to be back, at least in the regular season.
And is he
I
playing for
wouldn't
the
expect him to
Packers?
be back at all. I mean, it looked like a season-ending injury when it happened.
Who's he
Drew
play for?
Tranquil, who has been filling in for Nick Bolton, the
Okay, yeah.
middle linebacker, got a concussion in the game. And so, but Bolton will be back this week. And the Chiefs are relatively deep in the secondary. They've drafted so many secondary players over the last 2 seasons that while I'm sure he'll be missed a little bit, I think Kansas City can still maintain the kind of defense that they have been playing. But the offense, once again, struggled, here on the road against the Packers. Great running game for Isaiah Pacheco, but there's nobody to get the ball to. The guys can't get open. There were some comments on Facebook last night during the Cincinnati-Jacksonville game, how C.J. Beathard came in and just started getting the ball to the receivers, like it was no problem whatsoever. And somebody questioned, how come Patrick Mahomes can't do that? And I commented back, I said, because the Kansas City Chiefs are always looking for the home run ball, or they're trying to be cute and show a play that nobody's ever seen before.
I agree with that.
If they would just run normal standard plays, I haven't seen a jet sweep. They used to run 5-6 screen passes a game. You'd be lucky to get one out of them.
Yeah.
Okay. The things that I want to complain about when it comes to the Chiefs offense, I know at some point they keep saying, well, we're going to get it. Eventually it's going to happen. I think that they got one more loss still in them, and it's probably going to happen this week at Arrowhead against Buffalo. And then maybe they'll take their head out of their ass and get in on the playoff run.
And
but
I
they're
have
not
to
going to be
agree.
the number one seed. They're not going to be the number one seed in the AFC. What do you think, Chris?
I agree with a lot of what you just said. And I'm going to use a little philosophy here with hockey, just because if you go back to when the Red Wings were real dominant, 25 years making the playoffs, that was our biggest problem why we lost playoffs, that we could have went to the finals, lost games, is by being too pretty. And sometimes it's nice when you can go in that game and be fancy and do those plays, but every game you're not going to be able to do those fancy plays. You're going to have to get nitty gritty, do the tackles, and get back to the little things to win football games. And you're going to have to play those tough, like the screen passes. You know what I mean? So I definitely see, because honestly, that's what lost you the game. I'm giving up the Packers credit. The Packers have played 2 great fucking games back-to-back weeks now. They came in Detroit Thanksgiving, played a hell of a game. Embarrassed the Lions, I'll admit it. They played a great game Sunday night against KC and won the game. But maybe if the Chiefs don't struggle on offense all damn night, this game probably still has a different outcome than what it shows. But that's great for Green Bay, because they needed a win, and the North is getting tougher. I'm okay with it. That just hopefully makes the Lions get back to figuring the shit out and stay on their and dot their I's and cross their T's to make sure we finish number 1 in the division, because I know Minnesota is in the playoffs as of right now, but I don't really see Minnesota making the playoffs. You got the Rams coming on strong. They're down to a whole backup system. Yes, they can they hang on and make the playoffs? Sure. But I just think there's other teams on the other side below them that are just a little bit better than Minnesota. So the real team we need to worry about in the North right now is Green Bay. I mean, yeah, we got to pay attention to Minnesota, but the stronger team out of the 2 is Green Bay, not the Vikings right now. So, Green Bay keeps rolling on wins, and I'll give it to Jordan Love. From where he started to where he's at now, the kid is playing phenomenal football, not making no mistakes. He's giving his team the best chances to win, and I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, Ron says that he's been saying since the offseason he'll stick with the fact that Love is definitely the quarterback for the Packers. You just got to give him time to grow into the position. Everybody is so, and they're doing this, every fan base does this, and it drives me crazy to see people want to bail on somebody immediately. If it doesn't happen immediately for somebody, then oh, they're no good. We need to move on. We need to go to somebody else. We need to do this. We need to do that. And Love is a prime example of that. He's been sitting on the bench. He didn't play a whole hell of a lot in college, but he knows the system. He's got a lot of great young players around him. Man, their wide receiver core is dynamite.
Yeah, it is.
And if Aaron Jones gets back to run the ball where they got the two-headed running attack again with A.J. Dillon, Green Bay's dangerous.
Yeah.
They're super dangerous, and if they make the playoffs, people better watch out. I mean, I know we overreact to every time somebody beats the Kansas City Chiefs, but, the Chiefs are still a really good team despite their struggles this year.
Agreed.
And when a team beats them, it means something.
Did you see
the video of the Packers celebrating in their locker room?
No,
they acted like they won the world championship.
Because a lot of people didn't expect them to win. A lot of people didn't expect them to win the week before against Detroit, and that's the thing.
It's one of those. Everybody on NBC picked the Chiefs, so Green Bay immediately wins.
Exactly. It's just not that too. It's, to me, this is not blowing up in overexcitement, because the fact that they went in on Thanksgiving and embarrassed the Lions on Thanksgiving, then they followed up beating KC. That's not being blowing it overboard. That's being straight facts that they beat two good teams back-to-back weeks. And just a few weeks ago, it looked like they weren't even going to be where they're at today. But something in between those games until now, they figured it out and they got shit rolling. Now, the next few weeks will tell how serious Green Bay really is. Because if they dip back off, then we know it was just another tip and solder in the rebuild. But if they play no strong weeks, their rebuild might not be as long as people expect it to be.
Thank you. Shut my door. Love you.
Coming too.
Okay, so now that we have reviewed last week's games, we're going to take a look at the current standings in the NFL. And, just go through it here real quick.
Hey, Ron.
Miami is, of course, the number one team in the AFC East. Buffalo is chasing them. But, like we talked about, they've got some monster games coming up. And, they're probably going to get the win in Kansas City this week. But they've got some big-time games coming up after that. And with the schedule does them no favors, and if they don't get at least 11 wins, they're probably not getting into the playoffs. And so, there's that. We move on to, Miami's got the number one seed right now in the AFC. Baltimore would be number two. They've got the lead in the AFC North. And then you've got Pittsburgh and Cleveland right there. Now, Cleveland, they're coming off a loss against the Rams, but they've got a soft schedule going forward. Joe Flacco is a seasoned quarterback. They have to play against Jacksonville here, soon, and Jacksonville's going to be without Trevor Lawrence probably in that game. And so there's another victory as they try to move up the board here. Cincinnati, I know they looked good last night, and they may pick up a couple more wins, But for my money, the schedule is too tough going forward. Jacksonville, they're gonna struggle to hold on to that top spot in the AFC South with the Colts and the Texans coming for that spot, especially if Lawrence is out more than a week or two with this high ankle sprain. I think that Beathard is a capable backup, but the schedule is just killer for Jacksonville. They got some real tough defenses that they're going to be playing here real soon. Baltimore Ravens, Cleveland Browns. I think it's going to be real tough for them. Moving forward. Indy and Houston are primed to possibly make the playoffs.
I just want to add in real quick before we move down to the West. It's going to be crazy because if Jacksonville loses, say Lawrence is out multiple weeks, and Houston and the Colts keep winning, I expect Houston. The Colts are borderline, but it's possible the Colts could force them out of the playoffs in their own division, depending on how long Lawrence is going to be out.
Yeah,
I would say Houston has a legit chance of winning that division now. I will say that. I won't say that about the Colts, but Houston for sure.
Houston's got a couple of tough games coming up for themselves as well. We look at the AFC West. Kansas City's probably going to lose to Buffalo this week. But after that, they got the Raiders. They got the Chargers. They got Cincinnati. They got I'm trying to think of who else they have, but I mean, it feels like they have a pretty soft schedule in comparison to the gauntlet that they have been going through. And, I think that Denver probably lost their chance to get in the playoffs when they lost to Houston this week. They've got themselves a tough schedule going forward as well. And we're gonna take a look at my prognostications after reviewing the schedule and thinking about how the season has gone. Philadelphia Eagles playing the Dallas Cowboys this week. This is a chance for Dallas to get that top spot in the NFC East. But Dallas doesn't have an easy schedule going forward after they play against Philadelphia. They still have to play against Miami in Miami. They still have to play Buffalo. I'm trying to think of who else is on their schedule, but
they still got Detroit.
They got to play Detroit. Okay, and so they're still primed to make the playoffs. Like I said before, it's a must-win game for Dallas against Philadelphia this week if they're going to have any shot at the number one seed or the NFC East.
Agreed.
We've talked about Detroit, and their defense, kind of slipping back a little bit. They've got to worry about the Vikings and now the Packers for sure. As, Detroit plays the Vikings twice in the last month of the season. And if the Vikings have anything for them, that could be a problem.
Yep.
And they don't play the Packers again. But the Packers have a bit of a soft schedule going forward, and so Detroit has to continue to win. Right now they got a 3-game lead, but, things could change in a hurry if Detroit struggles here down the stretch.
I think going into the Saints, we needed 4 games to clinch, I believe. We need 3 more wins to clinch. So, yeah, we definitely need a win this week. And hopefully beat the Broncos, and then we would have to beat Minnesota to be able to clinch before the Dallas.
In the NFC South, the Falcons kind of took over this division by beating the Saints 2 weeks ago, but their schedule is not favorable for them the rest of the way. And it's not favorable for Tampa Bay either. We talked about the offseason how we thought that the New Orleans Saints, were the team that, could win this division. But now they're basically a game and a half back because Atlanta swept the season series against the Saints, and the Saints are down one game in the standings. And so it will depend on, how they play going forward. I believe the Saints have to play against Dallas. And so that could be a game that maybe knocks them out of the playoff picture. Carolina's going to end up with the number one pick. We go to the NFC West, and, San Francisco.
Hang on real quick. Did anybody hear
ahead.
how long Carr is going to be out? Have we heard any news about Derek Carr?
Just questionable. I expect that Jameis Winston will probably be the starter this week, and he's capable.
Well, he's capable as long as you get the good Winston and not the 30 touchdown, 30 pick Winston. I don't know if you watched any of that game, but the commentators at the end of the game when he took over Sunday was priceless. They were calling the Jameson Winston experience when he came in the game. They were actually kind of irritated that the Saints didn't leave Tyson Hill as the quarterback in that game Sunday. So I thought it was pretty comical listening to that.
Well, Ron says he's in concussion protocol, Derek Carr is, and I think that would be the second time this year. And so they're probably going to handle him with kid gloves. I would not expect him to play this week at all. I expect Jameis Winston to be the starter for the Saints. And we'll take a look when we preview Week 14 who they're playing, because I don't remember. But if you look at the NFC West, San Francisco, knocked down Philadelphia, but they're still a game back from, the top record in the NFC. So they need to continue to, do their thing. They've got Baltimore coming up. I think they still have another game to play against Arizona, which won't be a problem, but Arizona has been one of those teams that's scrappy. I mean, look at them. They just beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. And, nothing's a given. You look here, the Rams and the Seattle Seahawks both at 6-6. I think that there's a real possibility that Seattle got eliminated from the playoffs by that loss to Dallas, on Thursday night.
Yeah, because then they lost both games to the Rams, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they have, which means that they're a full game back, really. If they tie with the Rams get in the playoffs.
So their best hope is the Rams fire thins out. That's the only shot they really got. And they're pretty much going to have to win out.
Okay, so as I predicted here, or whatever, as I said, we're going to do my prognostications. We've got 5 weeks left in the NFL season. We're going to take a look at what I think is going to happen, for the rest of the way. And so now that we've looked at the real standings, now we're going to take a look at what I think is going to happen the rest of the way. And we'll start just like we began in the AFC East. Hopefully my computer doesn't go crazy. And in the AFC East, I still have the Miami Dolphins. They're going to end up getting the number 3 overall seed because Miami has to play against Baltimore. And I think Baltimore, with their defense, I think they are a team that can stop Miami. The Dolphins also have to play against Dallas, and Dallas's defense, I know it's going to be in Miami, but the Dolphins are still going to end up with 12 wins. Buffalo, with 9 victories, does not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
The Baltimore Ravens end up with the number 1 seed in the AFC by virtue of beating some of these teams down the stretch, including San Francisco on the road, Miami in Miami, Jacksonville, and so I think that they're the team to beat. They're going to have the first round bye in the AFC. The Cleveland Browns get a couple of easy games because they play teams whose quarterbacks aren't playing. And so, with Joe Flacco as the starter, Cleveland manages to get 11 victories and ends up with the number 5 seed in the AFC. Pittsburgh, by virtue of their defense, definitely not their offense, will have the better conference record at 10-7 than a couple of the other teams that are at 10-7. And so they end up with the 7th seed in the AFC. Going to the AFC South, Jacksonville holds on for Trevor Lawrence to come back. They're going to lose the next 2 games against Cleveland and Baltimore, but they win the last 3 games of the year and hold off, Houston for that, top spot in the AFC South. And Houston, by virtue of their conference record and head-to-head matchups with the Indianapolis Colts, gets the number 6 seed. Colts miss out on the playoffs at 10-7.
It won't be a bad year.
AFC West, Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to lose to Buffalo, but I think they right the ship with an easy schedule after that. They'll have the number 2 seed in the AFC. Denver, like we talked about, probably going to go 3-2 down the stretch, but it won't be enough to they'll have a winning record, but it won't be enough to overcome, a bad start early in the season, and so they'll miss the playoffs. And so in the AFC, the first round matchups will be the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. The number 3 seed, the Miami Dolphins, are going to host the Houston Texans. And the Jacksonville Jaguars will host the Cleveland Browns. I think that Jacksonville will get redemption against Cleveland because Trevor Lawrence will be back at that point. Kansas City will take care of business against Pittsburgh. And then the game that will really be the big game, Houston at Miami, will be very interesting. But I expect Miami will get the victory. And because Miami is the higher seed, the Dolphins will go to play against the Kansas City Chiefs in the second round. And you'll see Jacksonville against Baltimore in the AFC divisional playoff game. Looking at the NFC side now, Philadelphia holds off Dallas to get the number 2 seed in the NFC. While they lose to Dallas this week, after that, things start to, get good for them again. Dallas has to play on the road at Miami, and while I think they win that game, I think they will struggle against at least 1 or 2 other teams. They end up with the 5 seed in the NFC. The Detroit Lions hold off the Green Bay Packers at 11-6. Minnesota misses the playoffs. The Packers get the 6 seed. Detroit, the 3 seed. How do you about the Detroit Lions having to play the Green Bay Packers in the first round of the playoffs, Chris?
I still think we could beat the Packers, so I would be okay with it. It's going to be a tough game, but we would have home field advantage.
New Orleans Saints managed to win some games at the end of the year. Jameis Winston comes in and wins a couple games. Derek Carr finishes the job. And Atlanta just misses out on the playoffs. Saints get the number 4 seed in the NFC. And then in the NFC West, San Francisco, their victory over Philadelphia this last week, will end up with the number 1 overall seed in the NFC, with the Rams making the playoffs at 9-8. But and just like we talked about, because they beat Seattle both times this year, that's what keeps Seattle out of the playoffs, and the Rams get in. So in the first round of the playoffs, Detroit's got the Green Bay Packers coming to town. The Los Angeles Rams play at the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Dallas Cowboys go to play at New Orleans Saints. And so I think that New Orleans against Dallas, I think Dallas is just the better team. So I would take Dallas. I would take Detroit by the slimmest of margins, probably in overtime, against Green Bay. And then, let's see, we got Dallas over
Saints.
The Rams would lose to the Philadelphia Eagles. And so because the Eagles are the number 2 seed, the Eagles would host Detroit, and Dallas would play at San Francisco for like the second consecutive year in the divisional playoff round. And for the third time in the last 3 years, San Francisco faces off against Dallas in the NFC playoffs. So there you have it. Those are my, just prognostications based on the schedules that are coming up, what I think is most likely to happen. Take a look, Chris. Tell me what you think, bud.
I mean, I think you're pretty right on with a lot of these. I think obviously some of these could change, definitely turn out different with 5 games, but your predictions seem right on. I mean, it's going the way. I know Ron got some comments for you. He said his first one said, "I don't think KC loses to Buffalo." He said, "You're giving Pittsburgh more credit than they deserve," which I do agree, but I do understand Pittsburgh's defense is pretty damn good. So I'm not totally against your vision for the Steelers, because that could really play out, depending on how long Pickett's hurt for, though, because I don't have much faith in Trubisky. He also said he would love to play the Packers week for first playoff game, and he said he still thinks Atlanta wins that division.
That's fine. Well, so now let's preview week number 14 in the NFL. And we start off with the Thursday night game, which is a bit of a stinker, really, as we've got the New England Patriots playing at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
The Steelers should be able to get a W here.
Yeah, they shouldn't have any problems. This is one of those easy games that I saw on the schedule that Pittsburgh gets a victory here and maintains their spot in the AFC playoffs.
Yeah.
I think we both agree here that we both like the Steelers to beat New England. Yep. New England with 2 victories is probably in that spot where they're going to end up with the 2nd overall pick in the NFL draft this year.
You're right.
Looking at the next game, we've got the 5-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the 6-6 Atlanta Falcons. And Tampa made Atlanta struggle with them earlier in the year when they played, and I think that there's an opportunity here for Tampa to get into, trying to work their way into playoff positioning. I think they can beat Atlanta in Atlanta because of the strength of their run defense up front, and Atlanta's main focus on offense is running the football.
Yes. And here's another plain example must-win game for both teams. Because whoever loses this
Atlanta's got to
game,
win this game. If Atlanta doesn't win this game here against Tampa Bay, they're going to open the door for New Orleans to get back in this.
also open the door for Mr. Goddamn, what's his name? Who's Tampa? I can't think of. I'm having a brain fart. Who's Tampa's quarterback? One more time.
Baker Mayfield.
Baker. I said it this whole year. Baker's playing for a career and a job, and this is his game right here. His one game right here to take a step in that direction. So Atlanta better be on Dr. I's and cross their T's, because Baker's got to play his ass off and leave everything on the field in this game.
Tough game here between the 6-6 Rams and the 9-3 Baltimore Ravens. Ravens have had plenty of time to prepare for this as they're coming off of the last week of buys, basically. I mean, I think we've still got a couple teams, Washington and I don't know who else, that has a bye this week. But this is the last week of buys. Baltimore and Minnesota both had a bye last week. And so the Rams go to Baltimore. This is an early in the day matchup, which means they're playing at 1 o'clock Eastern. And West Coast teams that travel to the East Coast always seem to have trouble adjusting the time difference. Baltimore is an excellent team. I expect them to win, but I wouldn't be stunned at all. Not at all. If Sean McVay has a game plan put together where he's got a spy defensively to stop Lamar Jackson from running the ball, and the offense really comes to play for the Rams.
And I'm not bringing this up to put bad juju or anything, but we all know the history with Lamar Jackson and his health problems at the end of the season. And this is a game I feel like if you're Baltimore, you tell that guy, do not run that fucking ball to Aaron Donald. Because this is that type of game where you're going to try to run the ball, and Mr. 99 is going to get your ass and possibly can ruin your whole season if you keep running the ball and getting close to him. That dude's a beast. So if I'm Baltimore Ravens, I'm the head coach, if I'm Harbaugh, I'm telling him, do not run the ball. Pass the ball, throw it away, give it to your running backs. I mean, that's just my perspective on it. Because even if they lose, they're still going to win the division and go to the playoffs. To me, this is the game you do not want to be putting that body on the line against some guys.
9-3 Detroit Lions at the 4-8 Bears, who the Lions struggled with the last time these two teams met a few weeks ago. It was kind of the start of their defense. You know, when they played against the Chargers, they gave up a ton of points, but they managed to get a victory. Then they came home to play against Chicago, and Chicago had the lead most of the game. They've got Justin Fields there. They've got their running game. The defense has been playing excellent. I don't expect the offense to lay an egg like it did against Minnesota on the Monday night game, you know, the previous week. And so
Did we lose them?
you know, I think that it should win the, but you never. Detroit to come to play. Are you there, Chris?
Yeah, I'm there. One of us broke up, but on my end, I don't know if with the stream or not, but I expect Detroit to get revenge on Chicago. this week. I expect our offense not to struggle and play a good, solid game. Let's be fair. If Goff don't throw 3 picks in that first Chicago game, Chicago probably don't ever get the lead in that game. So don't get me wrong, our defense did not play its best game that game, but did just enough for us to come back to win that game. So this time around, I expect our offense to come in there and play a great game. I expect to beat them by 3 to 7 points and win the game. I agree with Ron. Ron just made a comment. He said Bruce Irvin shows up again this week and balls out. I totally agree with that. I'm actually excited to see Irvin get way more snaps this game than he played last game. As we said in the beginning of the show, Irvin played 6 snaps from what I heard on the sports radio. And you heard 11. So even if it's 11 or 6, that ain't a lot of snaps in an NFL game. And to have the biggest impact of the whole defense, in my opinion, last week, that's huge. So I can't wait to see what this guy can do when he's playing 20 or plus snaps this week. Because McNeil's out for the next 4 games. So we're definitely going to need him to definitely step up. I'm not sure if our new D tackle will start in Sunday or not, because right now he's on the practice squad. So they might give him a week to adjust the practice with the team before he starts. So that means we're going to have to count on Irvin and our D-line to step it up big time against Chicago this week.
7-5 Indianapolis Colts at the 6-6 Cincinnati Bills. And this could be the nail in the coffin for Cincinnati. I know they're playing at home, but the Colts are looking to get a playoff spot and in a tough AFC South division this year. And so, I know that, they got Jake Browning and he played really well against Jacksonville. I just didn't think Jacksonville's defense came to play in that game. Indianapolis has got a pretty decent defense. Now, they've given up a few more points than I would have liked against a couple of the teams that they have played against. But some weeks they play lights out, just like we talked about, the Bears offensively, herky-jerky. That's the way the Colts defense is. Yeah. But I think that they'll be able to run the ball with Zach Moss. Gardner Minshew looking to lead the Colts to the playoffs. I think the Colts get the win in Cincinnati.
I agree. But I want to if I'm them, they can't let Cincinnati hang around because that backup QB is going to have Joe Burrow on the bench next to him. And he's coming in high off that Monday night victory. So if you let him stick around too long, you might hurt yourself and end up losing that game. So that's the only worry I see with the Colts. But I do agree their defense is pretty good, and they should be able to win that game. And Minshew's playing some good football over there as well. So, other than that, I agree. I think the Colts should definitely take care of the Bengals.
Well, and here we got the 8-4 Jaguars, probably without Trevor Lawrence, playing at Cleveland, and they're really good defense. They got Joe Flacco now at quarterback. I think this is a game where Cleveland picks the victory. Jacksonville's going to take a loss here because of the not having Trevor Lawrence. This is one of the games that helps Cleveland get into the playoffs. But Jacksonville's going to miss Trevor Lawrence for a couple weeks. I just know it. And Cleveland gets the win here.
I agree.
And then the reason I wasn't worried about Jameis Winston starting for the Saints is they're playing the Panthers. Panthers at the Saints, the Panthers defense played really well earlier in the year. But the longer that the season has gone on and the hope has drained out of the franchise, the worse and worse they have played. I think that the Saints playing at home, if they utilize their running game, They'll do, the standard, trick plays with Taysom Hill coming in to play quarterback from time to time so he can run the ball or throw or receive. Saints should get an easy victory against Carolina.
I agree. But I will say this, if Winston is throwing picks out there, that could be scary because Carolina's is starting to put some points up. Last week they put some points up a lot higher than I thought they would have. So I mean, but they should have no excuses not to go win that game.
Jets are basically playing for pride at 4-8, but it's obvious they don't have a quarterback. If Zach Wilson doesn't start for the Jets, unless the Jets defense wins the game on its own, the Jets have no chance in this game. I think Houston is a really good team. I think that they will be dangerous if they make it to the playoffs. And I think that even though they lost Tank Dell, they've got John Mechie, they've got Noah Brown, they have other wide receivers on that team that can step up along with Nico Collins. They got a reliable tight end in Dalton Schultz. They found the two-headed running game here this last week against Denver. I think Houston goes to New York and wins the game.
I have to agree. Now, what
Vikings and Raiders both coming off a bye, so they've each had plenty of time to prepare for this game. Head coach of the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, said that he would evaluate the quarterback position completely after
which I think is stupid.
Loss to Chicago. I still expect Joshua Dobbs to be the starter for the Vikings because of his ability to move around, be mobile. He's a smart quarterback. I think that the Raiders will definitely put up a fight here against the Vikings. Excuse me. They're going to be able to run the ball with Josh Jacobs. And, if Aiden O'Connell can get the ball to Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers and put pressure on the secondary, the Raiders got a real shot to win the game. And to be honest with you, I think the Raiders do win this game.
I think so too. And I just want to say this. I think Minnesota, I'm not trying to come too harsh when I say this, but I think Kevin O'Connor, as a head coach, is arrogant, or not arrogant, ignorant, to even have a cue to say he's going to evaluate quarterbacks. Josh Dobbs has been playing, if you ask my opinion, has been playing unbelievable football with the Cardinals and the Vikings since he's been with the Vikings. Yes, did he throw 4 picks and have a bad Monday night game? Of course. But what about the rest of the team? The rest of the team didn't show up either. And now you're going to pin that on him? And I think you're still, without Kirk Cousins at home, with Achilles, on your roster right now, he's the best quarterback you got on your team. The fact that you actually took the bye week to evaluate if he's going to be your starter, to me, shows that, I don't know, to me, if I'm a Vikings fan, I'll be a little worried. Because I think any average person could break down stats and know Josh Dobbs is the best QB on that team right now.
Well, you got one quarterback that's coming back from concussion protocol, and you got another quarterback that is, also coming back from another injury. And so I think that the reason that statement was brought up is because of interceptions and because he was asked by a reporter, what are they going to do at the quarterback position now that these other guys are coming back? And, he had to give them something. And so by him saying, we're going to evaluate, not just a quarterback, but every position, that's just a way to get through the press conference.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to be making a change. I think that Dobbs is going to be the starter for the rest of the season. I think he'll play well the rest of the year, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
Do you think
And
Justin
this game
Jefferson
against the
comes back?
Raiders is probably going to be the one that does them in.
Do you think Justin Jefferson comes back at any point this season?
He's supposed to play this week. If he plays this week, we don't know what kind of chemistry we're going to see, but I'm sure they've been practicing together. But if Dobbs can get the ball to Jefferson, and they start double covering him, and Addison starts getting the single coverage again that he was getting earlier in the year, Minnesota's got a real chance to beat the Raiders in Vegas.
I agree with that.
We got the 6-6 Seahawks, who are on the verge of, getting knocked out of the playoffs basically here by the 49ers. The Niners at 9-3, looking to keep winning. If they win out, based on the schedules of the other teams that are in the top of the NFC, the 49ers should have the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah,
so
I got the 49ers
to win this game.
Here.
Seattle put up one heck of a fight, but it might have been the last gasp by them against Dallas on Thursday night. I expect the 49ers to take care of business against Seattle.
Same here. And if Seattle, who's really serious about making the playoffs, they better come with their 8+++ game this Sunday. Kansas City and Bills. Dave thinks Buffalo wins this, but I think KC wins this because the simple fact, and this is just me how Buffalo's played off, is Buffalo last couple weeks have started out hot, but it shows if the other team can keep pace and keep pressure on Allen. Allen has been making those killer mistakes late in the game, costing them games. So I think as long as KC can put some points on the board on offense, that defense keeps on Allen, it will make a mistake or two in that game. I expect a close game because I don't expect Buffalo just to lay over and not show up and give it their all. But I still expect KC to pull this game out. It might be ugly, but I still expect them to get the W.
All right, so here's why I think Buffalo beats Kansas City, okay? The reason why I say that is because Buffalo is a desperate team, okay? They were not expecting to be in this position at all. They've already had to fire their offensive coordinator, which I think was a move to basically try and save his job. Sean McDermott, the head coach of Buffalo.
I agree with that.
They have to get this victory. They must run the table if they're going to, be in the playoffs in the AFC. If they don't make it to the playoffs, there's going to be some changes. I think we talked about it before. When you have a defensive head coach and you have a great team, but you just don't have enough to get it over the hump, they fire the head coach and bring in an offensive mastermind who has head coaching experience with the expectations that he'll be the guy that can get them over the top to get to the Super Bowl. That's what Tampa Bay did when they fired Tony Dungy and they brought in John Gruden. It's what, the Chargers tried to do when they fired Marty Schottenheimer and they brought in Norv Turner. It doesn't always work, but it is a pattern that we see happen year after year in the NFL. When you get these teams that are on the verge of greatness, they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. They're the favorite. They were the favorite in their division. They've been the favorite in their conference for the last 2 years. And they got walked on by Cincinnati in the playoffs last year, and now they're on the verge of missing the playoffs. And so they are playing for the coach's job, and they're coming off of a bye going into Arrowhead. Everybody gives the Chiefs, who are the defending champions, their best shot. And I think that the Chiefs are struggling offensively right now. While the defense may hold Buffalo under 30 points, if the offense doesn't, start doing some things, to match that point total, Buffalo wins the game. And so that's why I'm picking Buffalo to win. I love the Chiefs. I want the Chiefs to win, but I am a realistic fan. I don't make bold statements without backing them up with facts or, trends that have happened in the league. I don't just talk out my ass. Okay.
I agree with that.
I'm telling you, Buffalo, okay, this is the team that has knocked them out in the past. They need this victory. They know each other so well. Buffalo's going to get it done. They're going to stay alive in the AFC playoffs for at least one more week. Kansas City doesn't have to have this game. They already know they're not getting the number one seed in the AFC. Okay?
That is true.
They don't have to have this game. They're not as hungry as they used to be. They've won 2 Super Bowl championships. And the fan base for the Chiefs are losing their minds because we're not the New England Patriots. We're not going to get, we're not going to go to the Super Bowl 9 times in 20 years, and we're not going to win 6 Super Bowl championships, because of lack of, salary cap room, we're in a loaded conference and we're playing in a really good division. Tom Brady and the Patriots played in a nothing division for 20 years. All the teams in that division sucked.
They can
guarantee themselves 5 or 6 wins a year out of that division. Okay, get them a first round bye. Well, now there's only 1 first round bye. There used to be 2.
That is true.
And so, I'm annoyed by all of the Chief fans, that, and I understand they're fans because they're fanatics and, they're always going to root for their team and live or die, I'm with my team. Well, that's fine. You can be. But don't try to say that the sky is falling. They are completely spoiled, okay? Everybody is completely spoiled around here by the fact that they've won 2 Super Bowls and been to 3. And now it's like their God-given right, if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, life's going to end as they know it. Not every team is going to have a long-lasting dynasty for 10, 12 years.
I agree with that.
And it just drives me nuts, And so let's move on. We can talk about that forever.
Well, I just wanted to say a little piece to that.
6-6. We talked about maybe Houston knocked them out of the playoff picture this last week. They can get back in the thick of it, but they got to get past the Chargers. They're playing in LA. The Chargers are coming off only a 6-point output. Their defense shut out a very poor team in New England. I think Denver is the better overall team, and I think this is the game that gets Brandon Staley, the head coach of the Chargers, fired. This will be it right here. Okay?
I agree.
Denver's going to go in. They're going to win the game in L.A., and the Chargers are going to be like, we got 4 weeks left in the season to see what the interim coach, Kellen Moore, who's the offensive coordinator, what he can do. And, but we're going to put a big help wanted sign out after this game and be like, we'll be looking for a new head coach at the end of the season.
Good deal. I think Broncos actually win this game as well.
So then the big Sunday night football game. This is the must-win game for the Dallas Cowboys. 10-2 Eagles at 9-3 Cowboys. The Cowboys must win the game so that they can take over the number 1 spot in the NFC East. No matter what happens in this game, both these teams have pretty difficult schedules going forward. And so this game may not mean as much as it looks like it does right now. I think Dallas, which nearly won in Philadelphia is a tired team. They nearly got beat by Kansas City. They nearly got beat by Buffalo. They got whooped up on by San Francisco in America's Game of the Week. Maybe that'll be enough to re-energize them because they feel embarrassed and they want to make sure that they keep the Cowboys from taking their spot. But I think that the Cowboys have had this game circled for a couple of weeks now. San Francisco did them a favor. They're playing at home. They've got the defense to stop them. The offense is one of the best ones in the league, but they haven't showed it against elite teams. If they're going to show it, now's the time.
I think I'm with Ron on this one. I think Philly holds on. I think Philly's embarrassed and pissed off. And I just think that's going to be a little too much. I think it's going to give them, like you just said, I think it's going to really re-energize this team. I'm hoping for a Cowboys win, honestly, because I feel like Detroit could catch the Cowboys, and maybe that will bring the Eagles back down a couple notches the rest of the season. But I just think that's too much. But I will say this: if the Cowboys are legit as they claim to be, this is the game to prove it. And I expect a hell of a game out of that game. I wouldn't be surprised if we see overtime.
Monday night doubleheader, got two games going to be running at exactly the same time. Earlier in the year, they had, where they were offset by an hour. And, it's too bad that the matchups aren't just a little bit different, because Packers versus Dolphins would sure look good right about now. But instead, we've got the lowly Titans at the Dolphins. I expect the Dolphins to win. And the Packers at the Giants, and I expect the Packers to win. Both those teams are, basically rocketing at this point towards the playoffs. Green Bay showed everybody this last Monday night or Sunday night that, hey, here we are. We're a full bona fide team now. We've learned how to play together throughout the season. We've taken some losses through the season, but now we're ready to go. And I know they're going to New York, and the Giants defense can times, but I think that if they get Aaron Jones back and they're able to not only pass but also run the ball, should be an easy game for Green Bay.
This brings it up. Ron put a comment earlier. I was trying to bring it in, but we were going through the teams. He said he don't think Aaron Jones is coming back this year because the Packers, I guess, just signed Kenless Drake, running back today. So, not saying he's not coming back, but that might be a sign that he's not coming back if they did go sign him.
Right.
But I think Miami wins and the Packers win. I'm hoping the Giants do us a solid and pull one out here, but I just don't see it happening.
Now listen, Chris, when you start begging other teams to beat your arch rivals because you're scared of them, that's not a very good sign.
Hey, I'm not scared of no one.
Really? Then why are you begging other teams to beat your arch rivals for you?
Because there's a part of me that don't want to see Green Bay in the playoffs, period.
That's right.
I want the spotlight on Detroit for one fucking time. You know how much years this division has had a spotlight on the Packers? Everybody else didn't make the playoffs.
I love you to death. I'm rooting for Detroit. If Green Bay plays Detroit in the first round, I am going to laugh my ass off. I don't care who wins the game. Okay, just the fact they're going to play each other, I'll see the sweat forming on your head, and it'll start to come down. You won't be able to wear shades. If you do, it'll all be a fake persona, because you just know after what happened on Thanksgiving in Detroit, they've already done it once. Goff makes mistakes. The defense has trouble stopping people. You are going to be so pissed if you don't win at least one game in the playoffs this year.
I'll be bummed out. I'm not going to lie on that. Will I actually be pissed? I don't know about that. We'll see when we get there. It depends on how we lose. If we lose in a stupid game because we shot ourselves in the foot all game, I'm for sure going to be pissed. If we play Green Bay,
Ron is commenting with alibis here already. We're Lions fans. I'm rooting for any NFC team that is in the mix to lose. I want all the other teams to lose. Yeah, but that's all well and good. You saying that though, is a general statement. He's literally saying, I need this team to beat Green Bay and do us a solid because he's worried.
I'm not worried. I have faith that we are the better team. Why'd you
take your shades off? I'm not worried.
Because to be honest, it was starting to hurt my eyes. Looking at a computer screen with it fucks with your eyes. Now I do want to add this to your piece with the KC fans and your frustration. I definitely get that because that's what drives me crazy. Because I run, for people that don't know, I run the NFL Renegades. There's a lot of Chief fans. There's a reason why I do the show with David, because he's a lot like me. At the end of the day, we love our teams. We'll pick your back and forth, talk our shit here and there. But at the end of the day, we're going to talk with real football. We know the real facts of football. But there's so much KC fans in that group that the Chiefs are God gifted to everybody.
Unrealistic expectations.
They're the next Patriots. Now, I will agree with the Patriots had an easy division, but you still can't take away because of what they did in the years. That's unheard of. That's once in a lifetime. Sure.
Consistently good.
Exactly.
And listen, there's nothing that I'm not saying that the Chiefs are not going to be consistently good for as long as Andy Reid is the coach and Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. You can only count on Travis Kelce to be there for maybe 2 more years.
Yeah.
Okay. He's getting along real well outside of the football world. He wants to stay there because I really feel like he's best friends with Patrick Mahomes, and he's not going to take off on him. He wants to be the all-time greatest tight end in the NFL, and he's looking to get a couple more rings. But he has outside interests now.
Yeah.
He could be an actor. He could be a comedian. He could be on game shows. He could do all kinds of different things. And he already had those things lined up for himself. And now he's got the girl to go with it.
Okay? Exactly. And I will say this too. This on because and don't take my words when I say this or jump on my shit when I say this. But he, on his last broadcast with his brother, he did say he was happy with how things are in KC. But he did make it clear when he was talking to MGK on the phone and he offered him $500K to come to Cleveland right now and play for the Browns. He did make it clear that was always his dream.
That was always the dream, but he's not leaving.
No. What I'm saying is, I don't think he leaves in the next 2-3 years to go to Cleveland.
But a year before he
retires,
he's not going to another team, Chris. Okay.
You don't think he might just say he plays for Cleveland?
No. Why would he leave Patrick Mahomes?
What if the Chiefs are ready to move on from him at that point in his career?
I don't think that's possible. Okay? I think that, listen, he's already taking a discounted rate. He's going to continue to take a discounted rate because he wants to be a winner. And if him and Taylor shack up on a permanent basis, he don't need money.
No, but here's the thing, though.
So listen, what I was getting at is I was saying that consistency over years, okay? We are going to be mostly consistent. I mean, we have a winning record up until this last week. with buys and things happening, we had the number 1 seed in the AFC. Okay. We're going to be in the playoffs. We're going to win the division. They've hosted 5 straight AFC championship games. Okay. Yes, they're a dynasty. Okay. But it feels like that the fan base, is in what do I want to the scenario that I want to bring up is when LeBron James went to Miami and said, not 4, not 5, not 6. That's the way the fan base acted once Patrick Mahomes won the first Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay. And now they're trying to will it into existence by being mad when things don't go right. No season is going to be perfect. The Chiefs have had struggles in every season that they have played with Patrick Mahomes. Okay. Yeah. They struggled defensively early on. The defense has been, fixed up. They had great wide receivers early on. Well, you can't have both great wide receivers that cost $30 million and a great defense. The Bills are going to come due real soon. Okay. They have offensive linemen. They have Nick Bolton. They have L'Jarius Sneed. There are players on that team that are going to want to get paid, and they're not going to be able to keep them all. And so to maintain the consistency that they have, they're going to have to continue to draft well. They're going to have to continue to develop players. And that's what the fans are not getting. All these wide receivers that they're bitching and moaning and complaining about right now are all being developed as they play. Some take longer than others.
Exactly.
Rice is one of those guys you plug in and he's ready to go.
And I just want to bring
needs more seasoning.
And I just want to.
Yes, he drops passes, but he is a deep threat. They don't have a lot of deep threats. Him and Justin Watson are the deep threats. Hey, little buddy.
What's up, buddy?
Name of the show when the house is in space when they play a game.
Zathura. Zathura, everybody. Anyway, that's funny. But I mean, in all seriousness, okay, they're developing players. Well, we could have had DeAndre Hopkins. With what money?
Exactly.
We could have had Odell Beckham Jr. Every time, and I've seen it on the Detroit page too. It's not just the Chiefs fans; it's every fan base.
Our fan base is crying we haven't signed soon.
As soon as a player becomes available,
exactly.
As soon as a name player becomes available, well, we should sign him, shouldn't we? We should get Shaq Leonard, right? We should get this guy because he's a famous wide receiver. We should get this guy. He's a famous tight end. Yes, son.
Exactly.
Zathura. Is mom not out there? Zathura. Z-A. Z. Yeah. Crazy. See ya.
This is what I wanted to say about it is here's another. I agree with what you're saying, and that's the thing. But here's another thing. If you want, what the Patriots truly had to, and it started at the top of the team, Tom Brady. You got to think of this when all these big contracts started. You got to go all the way back to that point. You had Tom Brady, 4-time Super Bowl champion. He could have got an arm and a leg from New England, and they would have paid it. But he didn't. He wasn't Patrick Mahomes that took the big deal. Yes, Patrick Mahomes rejects his contract and gives money back to do it, but it still don't help when you're still paying a lot of money. Brady didn't get paid like that until he went to Tampa. Big difference.
No, he didn't get paid like that even when he went to Tampa. He only took $25 million.
Exactly.
It was a 2-year deal for $50 million. And this is after, the $40 million a year quarterback contract started being going through.
And because you know what Tom Brady knew that other people don't realize? If you were like him winning all those Super Bowls, every commercial, product, anything to do with the NFL, guess what? They want your ass in every commercial. So guess what? You give them a big price, and what they're going to pay you to be in their commercial, and they're going to pay it because you're the best quarterback of the whole league with the most Super Bowls. So he made more money off the field for what he did on the field, and he didn't take it from his team, and it allowed him to be good like that. Guess what? We'll probably never see a Dan dynasty that good. That dynasty will be history and never be broken with the way things are today.
But everybody acted like, oh, well, we're going to do the same thing New England's going to do.
You guys had a chance. You really did, until big players took the big contracts. And guess what? I'm not talking shit because everybody wants to be paid for what you bring to the table.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? If I can't blame Patrick Mahomes for signing that contract. If someone threw that contract at me, it'd be hard to be like, I'd rather try to beat Tom Brady's dynasty and the Patriots record and give you all this money. I don't think you turn down that type of contract. Because look what it's done for him. It set him up for life. He went and bought a part of the fucking baseball team.
Every year, the salary cap goes up, and every year more players want to get paid. Okay, they're already initiated contract talks with the free agents. Every team is this way right now. They've all initiated contract talks with their free agents that are coming up this next year, so they can get their foot in the door and kind of get an idea of where they stand. Okay, I am under the belief this is the last year that Chris Jones plays for the Chiefs. They need his money, okay, to pay for L'Jarius Sneed, the corner, okay,
Yep.
and they need his money to pay for, other players. Now, I don't know how much further up. They're probably going to let MVS go, okay? That's $11 million they can use there on, one or two players that are, not being paid as much. So there's that. They're probably going to let Chris Jones go, but there's other players that they want to keep, to try and keep this team intact. Now, if they can get a long-term deal with Chris that isn't going to hurt them, they'll re-sign him. I mean, that's what they tried to do this year, but he wants to be, and deservedly so, one of the top 2 highest paid defensive tackles in the league. It's about respect to him, and it's about, a lot of it has to do with, and the reason why Mahomes had to go ahead and get a raise here, before the season began, is pressure on the players by the union. Okay? If the best players in the league are not being paid like the best players in the league, then they can't get raises for the players that are close to being the best or on their way to being really good. They can't get money drawn up for the other players in the league if the top players aren't getting the top money. And that's why, excuse me, Mahomes eventually was going to have to take, and get a raise. And so he gets a raise, and they restructure the contract to where he gets a lot of front-loaded money, but it doesn't cost him on the salary cap for 4 or 5 years from now. And they're going to have to do the same kind of thing with anybody else that they sign over the next couple of years. And there's going to be defections. They had to trade Tyreek Hill and they got a Super Bowl without him. That doesn't mean they're going to win any more without him. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the AFC is a cakewalk this year. Buffalo's not going to make the playoffs. Cincinnati's not going to make the playoffs. You got a young Houston team that doesn't know what they got. Jacksonville is wounded, and we already know they can beat them. Miami hasn't proved that they can beat anybody with a winning record. Baltimore is the lone competition, and they'll see them in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Okay. Because of all of these great players, Aaron Rodgers didn't even get to play. Okay. It was, the AFC was loaded and they got all the best quarterbacks and all this, but everybody's losing their mind because the Chiefs got 4 losses. So they're going to have to go on the road to win a playoff game. Okay.
Yeah.
And they haven't done that yet. So that's a new challenge for this team, a challenge that they will look forward to overcoming. They'll play their first game at home because they win their division. And then they'll go on the road to whoever it is. And, based on their seeding and the other teams that are playing, they could play Baltimore in the second round, but I don't think so. I think it'll be in the third round like we talked about before. I think Miami, Tyreek Hill in Miami, will get to come to Kansas City like they wanted to, earlier on.
Yeah.
And instead of going to Germany. And, I think that it'll be Kansas City. If it goes the way I said, they'll beat Pittsburgh in the first round at home. Miami will take care of business against, probably Jacksonville or Cleveland. And then you'll see, Miami at Kansas City and Kansas City versus Baltimore in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
And the way that Kansas City's defense plays, these teams know each other pretty well, because they used to play every year. They just didn't play this last year.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
And so I think it'll be an interesting matchup going forward for them. And I think that for your team, looking at the other side now that we've done a lot of talking about Kansas City, I think that the Detroit Lions fans have been waiting so long, and they don't want to be let down. They have high hopes and high expectations because they're not used to having expectations. Kind of like Ron said,
we don't know how to do. We don't know what to do with our hands, David. We've never been here. We don't know what to do with our hands.
Yeah,
we're like Ricky Bobby in the interview with NASCAR. When after he wins his first race and he's grabbing the mic like this, and they're like, "No, you keep your hands down," and he keeps trying to raise his hands. That's what the Lions fans are right now. And everybody in every group and every page are literally all mad about the Lions. There's one trash talk page that I don't associate with. Somehow I got added to it. And I just tune in just to see it. And they're fans of all the NFC North. Every post is about the fucking Lions and the Lions fans. Because they're so pissed off at the Lions fans actually out and about and talking proudly about their team. But here's the
listen, I love the fact that the Detroit fans are following their team around the country. Every time they play an away game, man, there is a ton of Lions fans there because they're not used to having a team with expectations and a team that they think that can win the whole damn thing. But remember, we're talking about reality.
Exactly.
It takes time. Okay.
100%.
Last year, they did not make the playoffs. They knocked off the Packers to eliminate them from the playoffs. And then they had a lot of expectations because of how well they played at the end of the season.
Yep.
They started the season with a win over the defending Super Bowl champions, and suddenly they're going to win the whole fucking thing after 1 week of the year. Okay? Then they come back to earth because Seattle goes in and puts up over 30 points on them in Detroit. And they've had that done to them on 3 different occasions this year. Okay. They went to Baltimore and got slaughtered.
Yep.
And so, I think that they need to cool their jets.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because the realistic thing,
if you win a playoff game, it'll be exciting that you won a playoff game. I fear for who you will face in the second round because you're going to be disappointed probably, and it'll be the defense's fault. Or it'll be Jared Goff throwing an interception, or they'll be able to stop your running game because they have such a good defense. And you got to be prepared for that, and don't be stunned that how could this have happened? Because I could see the posts already.
Oh, for sure.
Where they're going to trash your coach who you love.
The posts are already going, David.
They're going to trash the play calling and then be mad when Johnson takes a head coaching job elsewhere. Okay, after they trash him because something bad happened in the playoffs this year. Well, I sure hope our offense will be as good as it was last year. Well, you told Johnson that he was a piece of shit because he didn't go for it on 4th and 1, and they kicked the field goal and then lost by 2. Or whatever. Something will happen and everybody will lose their minds. I want Detroit to do well. I think it would be great. I want to see one of these teams that's never won a Super Bowl win a Super Bowl. I want to put it this way. I'm really disappointed that Buffalo is basically going to get eliminated here in a couple of weeks, okay? Yep. Because they're not going to make it. Jacksonville's not going to probably make it. They'll get eliminated in the playoffs. I don't think there's any way that Cleveland's going to get there this year, with the quarterback situation. I like Flacco, but he's 40 years old, or at least they're close to it. They got a great defense. But, I think that the most likely scenario, and people don't want to hear this, is either the Eagles, the Niners, or the Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl in the NFC.
I agree.
And either Baltimore or Kansas City is going to the Super Bowl in the AFC. And I think that Baltimore is the only AFC team that's probably got a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. I think Kansas City would get beat, especially if they played against San Francisco.
I agree with you.
I don't know that Dallas can get there.
I'm not sold on Baltimore yet.
Got their number. I think San Francisco's got Dallas's number. They're just not a good matchup for each other. Yeah. If Philly and Dallas somehow end up in the NFC Championship game, I don't think it'll matter where that game is played. It will come down to the wire.
Oh, for sure.
And, we'll get a preview of that this week.
Here's my opinion on the Lions, and I'm still sticking. I think
Philadelphia is probably going to win the Super Bowl this year. I know they just got slaughtered by the 49ers, but it's probably their chance to, when they have America's game next year in the video, it was our wake-up call.
I'm going to end the show on this. I feel like I have a lot of Detroit Lions fans, other than Ron. Ron's pretty realistic as well. I felt like I've been pretty realistic to this whole thing because my whole thing was, my first prediction was win the division and at least win one playoff game. Even if we don't win one playoff game, this season was still a success. I ain't going to be mad. Will I be a little bummed out for a couple weeks? Sure. I think everybody's bummed out when their team loses in the playoffs.
You know what the good news is, though? Do you know what the good news is? There's always next year, and you've got a good team to start with, and we're going to have free agency and a whole nother round of draft picks. And if this guy drafts another great set of draft picks like he did this year, you're just going to keep getting better and better. And you got to remember, Jason Kelsey's probably going to retire in Philadelphia. That'll hurt Philadelphia. Okay.
Yep.
Dan Quinn is probably going to end up taking a head coaching job, so he'll leave Dallas, and that'll hurt Dallas. Okay.
Yep.
San Francisco is going to have to start paying some of these other players on their team. That's going to hurt San Francisco.
Yep.
Okay. And while you guys have kind of like you're probably going to have to pay Goff. Okay.
Yep.
But, you have some cost certainty, while these other teams, they're going to lose some of their players, that, especially if one of them wins the Super Bowl. There's always 3 or 4 players. It's like, fuck it, I'm retiring. I'm done. I'm going out on top.
Just what Ron said, we wouldn't be done because we have money to spend next year, and draft. We have 4 picks in the first 100 picks.
Yeah.
So Detroit's sitting pretty, and that's exactly what I said in the comment today in Detroit. They were bitching about how we signed a defensive tackle that's 36 years old today. We didn't trade no one at the deadline. Why in the hell are we getting a 36-year-old defensive tackle? And my comment exactly was, look, what people
veteran leadership.
That's what exactly I said. So what people in this group don't understand is, yes, the Lions are 9-3 and doing good. But 90% of these players, other than Goff, is the only one I can really say that's been to the Super Bowl, that's been far, and other than the coaches that have been, the coaches in Goff is the only one that really had playoff experience. I mean, well, C.J. Gardner-Johnson as well. But I'm like, our whole D-line, our whole defense is young. That's why we're making mistakes. It's because we're young.
And
so we bring the veteran players in to keep the young kids motivated with veteran leadership going into the toughest part of the season, going into the playoffs. You know, Courtland Sutton has had some playoffs, but let's be real, Courtland Sutton hasn't had that big of playoff experience in Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh hasn't been truly Pittsburgh in the last few years. But he has been to the playoffs, Ron. You're right. But that's what I said. And so much people, and you could see where the real fans all loved my comment and replied, said, I love your comment. Because it's the exact truth. I do not expect the Lions to win a Super Bowl. Can we be a dark horse in this playoffs and maybe by luckily have things fall the right way and make it? Sure. But a lot of stuff's going to have to go our way.
Expectations so high, like it's a certainty, so you can have a damn heart attack when it doesn't go like that.
Exactly. My expectations is win the division. Please win at least one game in the playoffs.
Yeah,
if that happens,
you're going to win the division. You got a tough schedule coming up. Okay, Minnesota's no slouch, even though
sure.
they're kind of screwing around here the last few weeks. You've got Dallas. I mean, when I bring up Dallas, you're like, we can beat Dallas. Well, I
believe we can beat Dallas.
Just
a simple fact is
that defense is for real.
Oh, for sure.
If Micah Parsons comes for Jared Goff, he's going to get him. And so.
See, that's a good thing is I'm hoping now between me and you, when we play Dallas, I'm hoping Penny Sue gets in for most of the game. If Sue can stay on Parsons for most of the game, I feel really good about keeping him quiet. But for the fact that Parsons moves
all over the defensive line.
That's what I'm saying.
He's on one side in one play. He's on the other side the next play. Him and DeMarcus Lawrence move around back and forth, and then they bring the blitz. And when they bring the pain, there's more guys coming than there are those guys blocking, and that's why they're able to pick up so many sacks.
Oh, for sure. You know what I mean? So, but do I feel like we could sneak a win out in Dallas? Yeah, I do. Only why I say that is because kind of like what you said, expectations what happened before. Dallas and Detroit have a lot of close games. Now, mind you, Dallas could kick our ass. I wouldn't be surprised at it if it happens. I really, truly want it.
Is it in Dallas? Because
it's in Dallas.
Yeah.
So we already know that's going to be a tough ass game. But do I have faith on how our history going head to head has been? Yes, but we've had a couple blowout losses to Dallas as well. So that game could go 50-50. That's why I'm hoping we go into Chicago and win. We come back and then we play Denver. Then we play Dallas. Because even if we lose Dallas and we split the season series with Minnesota, three more wins, we lock the division. That's done.
I think so too. Yeah.
So that's done.
Well, buddy, it's going to be really fun. Going to be a fun week 14. I know Thursday night ain't going to be worth a darn. I'll still watch because, I relish in New England losing their ass, after all the years of being, the top dog forever and a day. I think that we didn't really talk about coaching carousel and quarterback carousel, but I think that they'll draft a quarterback. I think that there is probably 80% chance that Bill Belichick is coaching his last season in New England. I think they're going to reboot the whole franchise. They're going to start with a brand new head coach and a brand new quarterback. And Mac Jones is going to look real good as the backup to Purdy in San Francisco next year. And, when it comes to the other guys, Aaron Rodgers is going to play, and he'll be back for the Jets. I think that Chicago reboots. Justin Fields could end up in Atlanta. He could end up in Tampa Bay. He could end up in, hell, even maybe Carolina. Who knows? But I think that they'll reboot. There'll be a new head coach. I like Jim Harbaugh there in Chicago as a former Bear. I think that your boy Johnson, the offensive coordinator, he's going to be the head coach of the Chargers because he can work with Herbert. And, I think that having an offensive head coach there, if they bring in the right defensive coordinator to pair with him, that's the thing that they need, And, looking at some of the other teams that are probably going to be needing to make some changes, I don't expect, they're going to have a new head coach in Carolina. They're going to have a new head coach in McDermott may get fired, in Buffalo.
Yep.
We've talked about this, last week, a little bit of the coaching carousel, but quarterback carousel. Does Vegas want to stick with Aiden O'Connell, or are they going to go out and get him somebody? Okay. You got about 4 quarterbacks that are all really, really highly touted that are going to be coming out this next year. You've got Caleb Williams, who's not as hot a prospect as he was earlier in the season. Drake May, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr.,
JJ McCarthy,
are
most
all
likely
big name guys that these teams are going to want. I think Will Levis has locked up the Tennessee Titan job. But
I can tell you this:
obviously, some of the other rookies that are playing this year, C.J. Stroud is the quarterback of the future for a long term in Houston.
I can tell you this: if Jim Harbaugh goes to the Bears, I would not be surprised to see J.J. McCarthy drafted by the Bears.
Right.
Because
I don't think he'll be like the first pick. They may trade down and get more. Because that top pick, man, that thing will be worth gold. They could get all kinds of picks and stuff for it. Especially if they think they could get McCarthy in the first, early second round.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's if Jim leaves.
I haven't looked at as far as what the draft draft rankings or whatever for some of these other quarterbacks. But it's a big year for offensive linemen. I know linemen are a big deal this year. And Ron says he doesn't think that Fields is going anywhere. The Bears trade the first pick for more picks. Do you expect a new head coach there, though, Ron? What do you think, bud?
I've heard rumors and read articles that their coach is going to be gone at the end of the year. And a lot of articles and insider sources saying Jim Harbaugh is a high candidate to take over next year, depending on what happens with Michigan.
Absolutely, yeah. Ron thinks absolutely new head coach in Chicago. Just thinking about, the other, I think that Arthur Smith, I don't know that he's done enough to keep his job in Atlanta. Todd Bowles, this is his second year, I think.
Yeah.
Isn't this his second year?
Yeah, I believe
It's
so.
his second year, but his first year without Brady.
Yep.
The defense
So
has
he
been
might
okay,
get another
and that's
year.
his forte. It's the offense that struggled. And what do you expect? You got Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. And that's why I think he gets another year. They might try to get him a legit quarterback this year.
And then, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, is he really going to re-sign? Are they going to just keep him, or are they going to take this opportunity to bring in a fresh face at quarterback? I mean, it'll save them $40 million a year, and they'll have some money to spend on some other players. They got to have to re-sign Justin Jefferson.
That too, because Justin Jefferson's not re-signed yet.
Same thing with Jamar Chase in Cincinnati. They're going to have to pay him this next year too. Both those guys.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joe got his money already.
As far as the coaching or the quarterback carousel, I think they're going to stick with Pickett in Pittsburgh, Watson in Cleveland, of course, Lamar in Baltimore, Burrow. That whole division's locked up. But, Jets will have Aaron Rodgers. Allen's not going anywhere. Tua's not going anywhere. So it's a new quarterback, probably a new coach in New England. In the South, Steichen's doing a great job in Indianapolis. They've got their quarterback in the future, there. And until then, Minshew's doing a fine job. C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence are fine. And Will Levis, is the man in Tennessee.
Yep.
And so you got is Denver going to stick with Russell Wilson because he's costing them quite a bit of money? Or does Sean Payton decide that he's going to start over? I could see Russell Wilson playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Possible. They got the money.
If they decided to either trade him or, just go ahead and release him and start over with a new quarterback. The Raiders and Aiden O'Connell. Of course, Mahomes and Herbert aren't going anywhere. In the NFC, I wasn't sure that Kyler Murray was going to be the quarterback long-term in Arizona. I thought that they were going to tank and pick somebody else and then try to trade him elsewhere because of his study habits. But, he comes back off the injury. He's won 2 of the 3 games, I think, that he's played since he's been back.
Yeah.
They lost to the Rams, but they beat the Steelers and they beat what's the other team they beat?
Well, if they're going to trade him, if that's a possibility, they got to showcase him so that he has tape. So I still think it's a possibility, but it all depends on his relationship with this new coach. Who knows? Maybe the motherfucker's actually studying his playbook and putting the real work in this time behind closed doors. We haven't heard no articles come out about him playing too much video games lately, so things might have changed. He might have took this way more serious, knowing that his job was on the line in Arizona. You know what I'm saying?
Ron says that Russ Wilson doesn't have an offensive line and that team needs players to surround him, and that can be the case, but do they have the money for that? They've given up quite a bit of picks and they've paid some players quite a bit of money. Do they have the money and the assets to bring in free agents or draft, the offensive lineman that they need? Now, they signed McGlinchey this last offseason, the former right tackle of the 49ers, and as far as I know, he's played fine. But it's the rest of the offensive line that hasn't done the job.
Yeah.
And, of course, Javonte Williams was hurt earlier in the year. They found that McLaughlin kid, and between him and P. Ryan, that was the start of the turnaround with them running the football. And then when Williams came back, it was kind of like a 3-headed rotation. They run the ball decently.
Yeah. This offseason is going to be wild. I will say that.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to that, but I want to get to the end of this season first.
That's
I'm
what I'm
looking forward
focused
to
on.
the next few weeks. There are some seriously good football games, and I hope everybody will join us here on Tuesday nights because we'll review each week's games and then we'll preview the big matchups for the weekend that's coming up.
Exactly. So we'll catch you here next week, 8 o'clock sharp.
Eastern time.
Eastern time. We're live every Tuesday. If you haven't liked Fourth and Goal Sports, go follow it, like it. Every time we go live, you get a notification. Follow David. He does David Pick'ems. Picks with David on YouTube. He shares it on Facebook. Go follow him on YouTube. He's usually pretty good on Pick'ems.
I wasn't all that great this week.
I don't think anybody was that great this week. But that's why they call it any given Sunday. Depends. But it was a great show. Thanks for everybody who joined us tonight. Ron, it's always a pleasure talking with you every Tuesday. I always look forward to talking with you. You're one of the guys that love to comment, and I'm here for it. So
thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you again next time right here.
All right. Good night, guys. Good night, David.
Good night.